Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
Good morning. It is Thursday morning. It is the 7th day of August, and it is Inside the Game. We're live right now on YouTube, Roku TV, Twitter, Facebook, and I'm also live on TikTok. And so, Nathan, if you want to hop on into TikTok land so we could join each other, that'd be great. But yeah, we are, we're on the National Soccer Network. We're here every single day, unless one of us wants to take a day off, and then maybe we might not be on here. But we try to be on here almost every day. I say this because this is episode number 132. I mean, to put that in perspective, right? So here we are in August. 132 of these. So I mean that's a commitment. It takes 4 months of on air, right? I mean, if you just put it in perspective, right? So 4 months every single day. This is, even though we're in August, it's like, but yeah, it's really cool, right? I mean, 132 episodes in, and I think we're still just getting our feet wet in regards to what we want to talk about on this show and what we want to do as a network. So I think that from my perspective, we've come a long way, and we'll continue, I think, to come a long way, not only for this show, but also I think for the network as a whole. And yesterday we talked about soccer, obviously at the amateur level, and the environment, and not so much the environment as the competition, right? The competition for fans, and where they're going to want to go spend their time, and maybe even not fans, because I think we can argue that, when it comes to family time, it might not so much be about fans as it is about, hey, what does this offer me that this over here doesn't? Right. If I look at Cedar Point, right? I think it's important to do that, because Cedar Point is not Disney World. Six Flags is not Disney World. Six Flags is not Universal Studios. Right. All right. Dolly World, but Dolly World was just rated number one, for the third time in the last 5 years, the number one theme park in America. Right now, I think a day rate for the Magic Kingdom is $160 per person for the day, and Dolly World is $90. All right, so right away, I can take my family of 5 to Dolly World at a much cheaper rate than Magic Kingdom. Okay. And I think it's important to acknowledge, you talked about it. Hey, 80% of Americans, I don't think it's 80% of Americans that are $400 away from a catastrophe or bankruptcy, but it's probably, it's a high number. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Savings is hard to do. And to be fair, I've always said this: if I'm going to die, I'm going to die broke. I don't want to die rich, right? Because, because at the end of it, you want to be broke. You want to go into the grave broke with no money. Now you say, well, what about your kids? Well, my kids will make their own money. It sounds probably pretty terrible to say, but my kids will make their own money. Let them go make their own money. If they're relying on me, I'm not relying on my parents when they pass away to give me a bunch of money. That's not what I'm relying on. Hey, if it comes, it comes. I'm not sitting there going, where's my money? Where's my money? No, I'm just, I'm not gonna do that. But you're probably well, what does that have to do with soccer? Well, soccer, for the most part, when we're talking about fandom, we're talking about people getting into the bleachers and watching a game. It takes place May through August. A bulk of soccer in this country. I'm not talking about the MLS, okay, where it starts in March and it goes until December. It's not what I'm talking about. Or the USL Championship. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the quote unquote pre-professional amateur environment that starts May 13th and goes all the way until August the 2nd. That's what I'm talking about. Because that's the competition. All right. And I want to continue this conversation this morning because, again, we've been dropping a lot of stuff on social media, and especially the last couple of days, in regards to our conversations at the North American Soccer Expo. And I asked these questions. I asked Alexi Lalas. I asked Peter Vermees. I asked these questions to Luis Robles, right, former MLS goalkeeper, right? I asked these questions about the current state of our soccer environment. And, when you see the likes of what happened in Vermont this weekend, where you have 5,000 people who are climbing on porta potties. I'm not going to say porta johns because that's insulting to my name. Porta potties is what they are called. Okay, I just want to make that clear. Growing up, there was a company called Turner Sanitation, so it was bad that the porta john had Turner Sanitation on it. So for me,
oh man,
that was just not. That was not good.
Stars, it should have worked there. It's written in the stars.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. But anyways, so I'm asking about this. We've got players who are when you talk about the MLS and you talk about the next level of player, they're all traveling across the pond, or at least they're going to try to, and go play overseas. The best players are being sent that way, as they should be. And then you talk about college. Okay, the best college players, what are they doing during the summer? They're playing for the best pre-professional programs around the country. They get handpicked, they get recruited, and they get promised, hey, come here, you'll play all the time. Flint City Bucks, Des Moines Menace, FC Tucson, the Lionsbridge FC, Vermont now, Ballard. All these teams are recruiting these players, and they're doing so in a way in which they're trying to build a fan base. If you're telling me that the 4 players from the Vermont National Championship team are going to play on my team this summer, and I can market that to the exact same field that they play their college ball at, in the fall, that's going to attract a lot more people than you think.
Right.
And, okay, so, what does it cost to even get in these games? Probably $10, probably 15. So if you have a family of 4, it's $40 to get in. You talk about food. Okay, food's probably pretty reasonable. You're probably paying, $3, $4, or $5 for a hot dog, slice of pizza. Beer's probably $6, $7. That's still pretty reasonable considering, right? I mean, I was at Cedar Point, like I said a couple days ago, and to get a beer, if I wanted an actual beer, it was $16. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know how that's not a crime, by the way. I don't know. Like, there's something called gouging. And by the way, a water was $4. A bottle of water is $4. I don't know how that's not gouging.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, you and I both know that beer, a 24 pack of whatever beer they brought in, is not $180. So that one beer, legit, probably in the can, in their facility, at the bulk rate they're buying them, probably cost them $1. They're selling it. They're selling it for $16.
I mean, I don't get the economics of why everything is becoming more expensive. I mean, I understand it too a little bit, like all the inflation and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. You go to a professional sporting event. I mean, quite literally, I think one mixed drink, or it was a double. But if you get one, and I was referencing Wrigley the other day, and Peter's not on the show right now, but obviously being a Chicago kid, he knows this intrinsically. But if you get a double in terms of a mixed drink, I think it's $20 at the Cubs. I think it's 15 for a single or something. I mean, it's I mean, if you want to curb drinking, you want to stop your guests from drinking a whole lot, I guess that's one way to do it. But yeah,
but they're not gonna do that. I mean, everybody wants a drink. I mean, I paid for we brought our own water bottles, which you should do in that environment for sure.
Right.
Oh
yeah.
And then what I did was at lunchtime I purchased this unlimited, every 15 minutes you get a drink, a pop. You can go refill it. So that was $20 a person. So I bought 2 of those. Me and Bianca got one. I'm like, I'm not going to drink pop all day long. So, but if we each had a drink, then we could just pass it to our kids. So for $39, I got the all you can drink refillable, whatever, every 15 minutes. We got our money's worth out of it. I think combined, we probably did like 20 refills between the 5 of us. And so, okay, if you're thinking about, hey, what does it cost per drink? It was $6 to have a pop in that same glass. So if we had gotten 5 of those, it would have been $30 anyways. And so it was good savings. My point with all of this, it continues to be that while the money is absolutely a factor, okay, I look at it from the same standpoint of a restaurant, okay? Most people aren't eating out every single night. So what they do is they're like, okay, well, once a week, we as a family are going to go to a restaurant, right? It used to maybe be, okay, we're going to go out 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe we're going to go out Friday and Saturday. We'll have a nice home dinner Sunday, so we'll go out 2 times a week. So maybe because, hey, things are a little tighter, inflation, whatever you want to call it, we're going to go out once a week. And so, or maybe we're going to go out once every 2 weeks. So with that being said, what are you going to do? You're going to be more selective when you go out. You're going to go to a place that for the money you're going to spend, you're going to get good service, good food. Maybe that's the mindset, right? But that's kind of how I think the average family people will think. Well, we'll cut back, but we'll be selective when we do go out. So instead of me going to, this place twice a week, we'll go to this place once every 2 weeks. Hey, instead of me having our anniversary dinner at this restaurant, we'll go to this restaurant instead. It's similar, but it's a little less expensive, right? Well, we become more selective with what we do. And so again, hey, Detroit Tigers, if they're winning and they're playing really, really well, we know ticket prices are going to go up, right? We know that. That's how that works, right? When the Pistons are terrible, what were the prices to get in the Little Caesar Arena? They're like nothing, right? $15 gets you in, right? Now, the Tigers, the baseball prices historically have been much cheaper than other environments because there's so many games and they're typically outdoors. So it's like, and you could be kind of picky and choosy. You could pick a Thursday afternoon game where no one's going to be there. The tickets are like $15 versus going on a Sunday night ESPN Plus, ESPN broadcast, Sunday Night Baseball, where now, the stadium's rocking and it's got, it's 45,000 people there.
Right.
There's a difference between going to those types of games. And so, you be more selective. Hey, if you were used to have season tickets to the Lions, you might have given those away or whatever, and now you just go to one game a year. That sounds like a complete reduction of everything, but that's how people sometimes will do things. So yeah. I just say we're more selective. Again, I don't have like this in Metro Detroit, Michigan, which is obviously, I would say, very similar to a lot of other densely populated areas outside of a major city, Chicago, LA, New York, Austin, Texas, Dallas, whatever, across this country, probably very similar, right? You have this, you have your major sports teams, and then you might have a couple of things here and there kind of sprinkled around, but a lot of your more minor league environments are probably in smaller suburban areas, or maybe even smaller, like of your larger cities, right. Like Grand Rapids here in Michigan. Grand Rapids, I think, is considered the second largest city in Michigan now. It used to be third. Mm-hmm. Flint used to be number 2. Grand Rapids, I think, is 2. I think Warren is considered 3. I think. But again, Flint used to be up there. So Detroit, Grand Rapids, I think Warren. And Warren might, based on population, might be slightly bigger than Grand Rapids on population, not necessarily. Because Warren's a pretty big area here in Macomb County. But not like with tall skyscrapers like you might see in a downtown Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is very much like a Toledo. Very much like a Toledo, right? It's smaller downtown, compact, a big suburban area around it, and it's got a couple minor league teams, which I think is indicative of a lot of your smaller cities around this country, where you've got a big city like a Chicago, and then somewhere on the other part of the state, there's another city that has these quote unquote minor league teams, which draws fans, draws a fan base. And because again, I just don't think that like the Whitecaps would fit into Detroit. I don't think that would fit. I don't think it would work. You know what I mean? And maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong, Nathan. But I mean, typically these minor league outfits are not in the heart of where they'd be competing with the Tigers or the Cubs. Now, in a city like Chicago, you've got 4 million people that live there, something like that. Mm-hmm. You might be not the same level of competition, but I mean, you've got enough major sports in Chicago that you don't need to add a minor league team in there. So you'll find it somewhere in Peoria, or you'll find it, somewhere else. You'll find it somewhere else in the state where it'll draw fans. And so, it's just like, Top Golf. You're not going to put like 6 Top Golfs in like 30 minutes of each other. It doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Top Golf would be placed, one in here and maybe another one an hour and a half away. So you can draw crowds, draw people to come from a good distance. But when we talk about the amateur game at the soccer level, I mean, there's like no limitations. Let's just grab anybody that wants to pay to have a team, and you can be whatever you want. You know what I mean? There's no rhyme or reason behind it. It's just like these leagues don't. I mean, all they care. I'm not saying every league, but the leagues seem to care more about getting as many teams into their league that they don't necessarily really mind the fact that these teams aren't sustainable and can't grow. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. And so it's one of those things, Nathan, when we talk about the pre-professional pathway in this country and we talk about sustainability, while everything is exploding in soccer in this country, as it should, I'm concerned that when the dust settles in 2026 and we get into 2027, 2028, what's going to happen infrastructurally to this country when it comes to these amateur teams? And will we ride this kind of like rapidly rising, wave? And then at the end of it, it comes crashing down, and all we're left with is the really, really good organizations that were always that have been good since the beginning and are going to be good at the end. And then there's going to be a whole drop off of all these teams that just could not manage their growth and could not be sustainable because of the market that the way we're made up right now. And what are we going to have left at the end of it? I have deep concerns about that. And I know people are going to say, John, you're maybe, no. I don't know what the turnover rate is in the UPSL. You say about turnover. I mean, the churn rate where, okay, a new team comes in and then they stay for how long? What's the churn rate? I mean, the churn rate in Major League Baseball's minor league system is probably, they might change names. That might be a thing. But for the most part, I think the Whitecaps been around for a bit. They're not going anywhere. But how many teams have like these little
they
baseball?
Cut the number of teams that they had in half in 2020. They literally cut it in half. And I think it's part of the reason why. It just they don't need that many teams. I mean, you have summer leagues, you have all these other things that are obviously sprinkled across the country that are not directly affiliated, but no, they realize they don't need as many teams. Now, again, if you want to talk about some of those other leagues and whatnot, then fine. Then they generate money within themselves. The Frontier League, these other places, a little bit different, little bit of an echo on your side, by the way. Not sure where that's coming from.
I just I want people to hear you on TikTok.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
But since you're not on TikTok, I figured I would
yeah, well, we can try and figure out a way, because there is a way of streaming while also overlaying the what we're doing in StreamYard. I gotta figure out how to do that, because I'll watch streamers do that. They'll figure out a way to they can stream it while they're doing it, because that's the weird thing that I always run into as well. Because I hear you in my ears, but if you're out loud, obviously there's a little bit of an echo at the same time. But but there's just something when you talk about specifically the UPSL, there's something uniquely odd about a league that has just well, and it's not just them, but I just look at leagues in general. It's like we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teams. It's like how do you organize any of that? It's almost as if the league itself doesn't really have its hand on the pulse of what's going on with the teams inside of their league. The only thing that matters, as you mentioned, is just that they obviously pay the fee that they need to get into the league, and then whatever happens beyond then happens beyond then. Like how do you have 800 member teams in a league? Like that is, to me, that's just wild, and it's so disproportionate. That's the thing about more. I think people want to see more quality. I don't know if the sheer number really affects much, because what are we doing if we introduce a team in an area where, again, they can't really hold their own weight, but yet they're going up against teams in the UPSL that are like, they have the Columbus Crew name on them, and they're playing at the Crew Stadium, or there's such a discrepancy, a wide discrepancy, that I think I once described it as the Wild West in a way. Like that's kind of what the feel is. That's kind of what the vibe is sometimes, because you just don't know with how many teams there really are.
No, and the UPSL is the largest. The USL League 2, we talked about this, is the most organized and most professional-like league, as far as I'm concerned, in the country. You could put the NPSL in there. You could put other leagues that maybe are smaller in there as well. Every league has their strengths. Every league has their weaknesses. And I do believe that the goal is to get, players to play soccer. The biggest challenge is, how do we get these players to play in front of fans? And not so much fans of the game, but fans as... You just cut my live off, my guy.
All right, I'm gonna hop out of here. There you go. All right.
It's all right. It was funny. I always say, what happened? I just, because no worries. I'm sitting there going, what just happened? Well, I can go live on we can go live on our own personal pages to make that work. Anyways, that was funny.
All right.
I thought that was funny.
My bad.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine. It's all good, Nathan. But my whole point about all of this is that, if we think that people who are coming to the Whitecaps as a majority are fans of the Whitecaps, that's not it. Okay, of course you have your season ticket holders. Of course you have your fans who are in there. But I would argue that on any given night, the bulk of people coming into that stadium, I think it's above 50%, are there for varying reasons that have nothing to do with how much they love the Whitecaps.
Oh, yeah.
And I would argue that the same thing is true in soccer, that if you went to an MLS game, that, you want to go there for varying degrees. But again, 50% of them are not there. Again, I say even above 50% are not there because they love the Columbus Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are sports where that absolutely would not ring true. I think football might be one of those where I think that there are diehard football fans, both in the college sport world. And I think college athletics may even be its own animal, where you're a Michigan Wolverine, you're a Buckeye, but you're not. And anything Buckeye related, you are in love with. So you are a fan of, which I think, again, that is something that just transcends. But I do think that if you're like a football fan, like Detroit Lions, Pittsburgh Steelers, that you're going to have in that stadium at any given time, the bulk of the fans in a Lions or an NFL stadium are going to be 40, 50% one team and 50% of another team. You know, I mean, like you'll see a huge onslaught of Pittsburgh Steelers fans make their way in, you know, to Ford Field when they're on the road. And you'll see a huge, you know, fan base of the Steelers. And again, I think again that there's sports like that. I think basketball might fit the same kind of mindset maybe as baseball. I think that again, I think people like going to something that is entertaining. And basketball, because of all the things, the stoppages and the things that happen on the court, gives that to you. Baseball is the same, right? Baseball is a sport in which in between innings, something is happening.
Right.
You have to create some kind of an environment where something is happening. You know, like again, hockey, not so much. Hockey, I mean, there's stoppages, but there's not a lot of time in between for shit to happen, right? It's you in between periods, you got 20 minutes. Sure, bunch of stuff's going to happen then. Yeah, maybe small things in the bleachers or the stands, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, baseball, there is like a 3 to 4 minute break every half inning. Right? Boom, boom, boom. And so basketball, same thing. I think basketball, you know, you've got your, you know, every 12 minutes there's you know, there's a break. You've got your timeouts, but for the most part, it's all happens in between the periods. Football, nothing really happens except at halftime, right? Let's be honest. There's nothing. I mean, it's all on the field. You know, so and then look at soccer games. What are soccer games? I mean, soccer game is like it's like a concert in most cases. It's everybody screaming and yelling, and they're, you know, waving smoke up in the air, and it's loud. It's crazy. In some cases, it might even be considered insanity. You know, it's all of that and more, especially in the supporter sections at these stadiums. Right. And I again argue that a majority of the people coming to the MLS environment very well may be fans of soccer, but are more fans of being in the environment than maybe the product on the field. Again, we say that soccer is the vehicle, you know, that gets people engaged in the community aspect. But it's the environment. You know, it's the environment that you're going for. So this is my question, you know, to you. You know this probably better than I do because of your involvement with the Whitecaps. Obviously, it is a professional baseball team, so I think perspective, that's important. But you know, you see crowds coming in. You see how many fans are showing up to watch these games, and you said you've seen when they've been terrible, when the Whitecaps have been terrible, you have seen strong fan bases, strong fans at games, which again is an indication that people are going there not for the baseball, but for everything else. Because if they're terrible, are people really still interested in going? And I think you're going to answer this question. I think the answer is yes. Like if you took 2025 Whitecaps and they were terrible, they were dead last. Are you seeing the same numbers of people showing up today as you would if they were in first place?
It's over the top if they're good, right? If you bring in good prospects, and keep in mind, so in 2019 we were a level lower than where we are now, right? So we were a low A team. So the way it goes in baseball, you have outside of your Dominican summer leagues, you have rookie league ball, you have low A, high A, double A, triple A, and then you get the major leagues. So at that point in our maturation as an organization, we were a low A team, right? So you're not going to attract nearly as many top prospects, but the focus has always been on community. I said that the other day. So you're always going to get fun promos. You're going to get giveaways. You're going to get fireworks. We have 3 different mascots that people love. Cheap drinks, good seats, good part of town. We're not downtown like the Lansing Lugnuts are, so you don't have to deal with, downtown parking and, homeless people and all this other stuff. It's in a very nice part of town where you have a lot of parking. all of those things kind of add up to just create, again, an environment that people want to come out and watch the games. Now, you can't draw a line in the sand and say one way or the other, well, people are only coming for the baseball or people are only coming for this. I remember, so his name's Jed UK. He's a big Tigers fan on X, and he actually came into Detroit this year to see his first Tigers game. Or he actually came to the state of Michigan for a week just to come over here because he's been following the Tigers for his whole life. But obviously he lives over in the UK. He had never been to Michigan. Now, I don't know what exactly started his Tigers fandom, but sometimes you'll find that in the UK, like when they become fans of an American-based team, they just kind of pick their team. I mean, it's like when you see the NFL go over to London and you see 17 different NFL teams represented in the stands, it's because they're not from here. So it's kind of like Americans when it comes to Premier League or Champions League. We're just like pick our team that we like, and we're just like, I'm a fan of that team. I have no connection to that city or that part of the world, but I like their colors. I don't know how one decides. I mean, maybe Everton because Tim Howard was the goalie there. I have no idea. Like there's whatever. So, but he came over, to make a long story short, one of the questions he posed on social media, and it made me crack up when I saw it. He's like, so I don't understand the concept of minor league baseball. And maybe it's because he comes from a place over in the UK where everybody that goes out to, I'm sure, soccer matches over there is going to see the soccer match, is like a fan of the team, like their supporters are going to be yelling and rowdy and jumping all over the place. But in America, especially when it comes to baseball, it's very much different. He's like, I don't understand what's going on. He's like, what kind of people go to minor league games? Like, do they care about the team? Do they not care about the team? Are they actually watching the game, or are they not actually watching the game? Are they just here to drink and have a good time, or are they actually here to see what players are up next? Like what is the dynamic here? And I remember responding to that tweet and I said, yes, all of that. Yes, all at the same time, because I can tell you with all due certainty in the world, they do come out to see the baseball, because we would get standing ovations for our top 100 guys all the time. Now, mind you, they're prospects. Like, they're in the attention of the media. People know who these kids are. A little bit different when you're talking about the 20th rounder out of NC State that's already 24 years old. Like, people, there's not as much of a, oh, wow, here comes this guy. But everyone, these baseball fanatics, at least the people that follow the Tigers minor league system, they understand that there's a very real chance that you can see major league talent or future major league talent for a portion of the price. And that's why you have, the autograph seekers. That's why you have everything else like that are in and around the game, right? So that's one component of it. But the other component of it is what you were talking about, which is the entertainment and the community engagement aspect, which is, I mean, you hear all of these clubs talk about the importance of getting out into the community. It's interesting, whenever I do or used to do games, especially on the remote side during the bulk of the soccer season, you guys would send me information my way, and it would be a description of, well, what is this club? What is this group? And all of them would say pretty much the same exact thing. We're community oriented. We want to get out into the community. We want to make a difference in the community. We want to create a space for the community. All of them say the same exact thing. But how are you able to do that successfully, to your point, when there are so many teams out there? And the truth is that, like, facility wise, that matters. Location wise, that matters. Like, you can start up a team wherever you want to, but if the facility doesn't speak towards bringing out good crowds, and if you don't have, obviously, the people around to be able to make it an entertaining product or something that people want to come out and watch, it's going to be a really hard thing to do. I think the Caps benefit immensely from the facility that they plan, how clean it is, how nice it's kept, how good the fields are, how good the conditions of the concessions are, right? We've had the same on-field entertainer for 30 years. We've had the same public address announcer for the same amount of time. And those are major, major components of what makes a good community atmosphere. So I would imagine that for the clubs that we're talking about when it comes to Vermont or Annapolis or anybody else along those lines, they have those components down. They know what it takes, what it requires to hammer down those sides of the business. But when you look at the teams who are struggling to bring people in, struggling to get, people in the seats and everything else like that, my guess is that's the area that they probably struggle in the most. They just don't know. They don't understand. So to answer your question, this is a very long-winded way of answering your question, but that is arguably the overt majority of people are coming out for the experience of just being there. Now you have the corporate people that they're just coming out for their whatever, they're on the pavilion just having their party, which just freaks the hell out of me anytime a foul ball goes over there. It amazes me that more people don't get clocked every year. But you do have an element of that, but for the most part, again, it's a hangout, it's a fun, it's a passive watch, but that's kind of the overt majority of the people that you're looking at least in that space.
I want to address this community thing for a second. And I don't want this to, well, it's probably going to offend. It's going to offend people. I know it's going to offend. So I don't mean it to offend people. But, when I started a softball team, I walked into a restaurant and said, I'd like you to sponsor us. And they gave us $500, $700 to cover the cost of the team, get uniforms. And then our job was to go in and eat at the restaurant after our games and work up the dollar amount that was given back to us. That was given to us, right? You're trying, okay, you gave me $700. We need you to give me $700 in business. That's how that would work. That's the restaurant's definition of community sponsorship. That's our definition of reciprocating the community relationship with the restaurant. Okay? I understand that there are people out there that are saying, yeah, we want to build a community of people coming to watch our games. No, you want to play soccer, and that's what you want to do. Okay, you are a bunch of men that want to play soccer in the summer, and this are the league options you have. Right? This is it. All right. And if you want to be competitive, you have to be in a league that has other competitive players where you can draw those players in who otherwise wouldn't play on your team. And then what you do is you call yourself a community-based team and you start setting up shop in a local small town, and you go to their local high school and you I'm going to build this. But you just want to play soccer. And this is the part that I don't like. I don't like this. It's like we have decided that we want to be like these great stewards in the community. It's 2025. Okay? I mean, no, you want a soccer team. And what you want to do is you want the community to get involved so you can keep your soccer team going. I mean, call a spade what a spade is. That's what it is. I mean, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And we cover these teams all the time. So I just think you got to stop calling yourself community-based teams. I think you just got to call yourself a soccer team. Okay? This is the part that I really struggle with, because you just want to play soccer. And yes, you need money to do it. You need money. And so what you're doing is you're saying, yeah, we want to be a team for the community. Yeah, bring them all out. Well, when there's 700 teams, how many communities how much money is there to go around?
Yeah.
And why do you have to play in the biggest, baddest league in the country? Why not? If you are a full-on community-based team, you don't start here. You start down here. Ground level. Work your way up. You don't go from No, the MPSL, Michigan Premier Soccer League, is the adult league for men's and women's soccer in this state. Okay, that's MPSL. It probably costs $75 to register your team. It's maybe a couple $100. I mean, and all you do is you just play soccer. There's like you show up on a Sunday, game's at 2:00, you put on your cleats, you go play, and yeah, it's going to probably be a combination of really good players with some players who shouldn't be playing soccer anymore, along with some people out there who think they're ninjas. It's really what it is, right? That's what you're getting on in that league, and so you're rolling the dice a little bit, but you get to play soccer. There's the same reason why, you have you have your recreational co-ed softball teams, your softball team that, it costs you $60 to play in the team. And you go out there on Sundays, you get drunk for most of the game. You're drinking and it's what it is. Right. and then you've got like these super duper, like they have like, they look like they've literally gone to like Dick's Sporting Goods and bought everything at matches. They have like logos and like they look like they were picked up by the Pepsi Cola, and it's like and they have the sweetest bats. And when the guy steps up and just crushes a ball 9,000 yards into the doesn't even walk around the bases because or run around because a home run, you just hit it over the fence and you walk back to your you walk back to your dugout. It's like that's the difference between and those are just tournaments. I don't think there's really like a league. There's like more like tournaments. You just travel the country and go win money. So to be fair, I think it's one of the biggest, not lies, but misconceptions about amateur soccer in this country, where somehow like we're all supposed to like just know that X team from this community is all about the community. They're all about the community. No, they're all about playing soccer. They're all about playing soccer. They want to play soccer, and they need help. They need other people's money, but restaurants, businesses, whatever, to survive. And they're looking at all the other teams that are trying to do the exact same thing. Flint City Bucks have been around for 30 years. They didn't start off. They had to start down here. And so I would encourage any team that is trying to build a community-based team, if that's the goal, you start off where your cost is like $200, to play in a season. And yeah, you get renting fields is cost money, so find the most inexpensive field you could rent. Keep your cost to under a couple grand, and go play soccer. Why take on the $30,000 to $40,000 a year thing for 2 months? Doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it's somebody who's reffed it. I've coached it. I've been a part of it. We've made a business off of it. But it's like this thing where you're like, yeah, we're a community-based team. Well, what the hell does that even mean?
And that's what it comes down to. Like, what does it mean? What's in it for the community? Because it's one thing to say you're a community-based team, but then just the dollar amount is the biggest of the concerns, right? Because you want to be able to continue this. You want to be able to make this worth your while, to be able to compete at the highest level. But what is in it for the community? That's and the other thing is like that might take going into the negative. That might take going to that length to make that happen. Like, you can't, if you really want to take a gamble, you have to be willing to go to that point to make that work. But you have to provide something for the community themselves. Like, I just struggle with this idea that you can just plop a team in there and you're going to do okay. Like money doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't grow on trees. I know we've heard that quite a bit in our lives, but that you feel like sometimes that's the mentality, because how are you going to be able to support a team for consistently enough for long enough to be able to make it worth it if you can't provide something for the community to where they feel like they're actually getting something? That's really difficult. And so I know that there are certain teams that obviously do better in this regard and have a better hand on the pulse of what's going on. And you're talking about the Flint City Bucks. That's a perfect example of someone that has really gone from bottom up and has started at that point and then climbed all the way up. But for a lot of these programs, again, it's almost like coach speak. You know, when you hear a coach and he says the same set of words every time you talk to him, he always talks about.
Go ahead.
He always talks about like culture. you know, we have the best culture. We have a good group of guys. They work hard. They show up every day. It's the same stuff. It is the same thing when you hear some of these places talk about community. Like, yeah, you're saying the same thing that guy just said. You're saying the same thing that person just said. What does it mean for your community? Because it doesn't seem like the way that it was established in what exactly it is that we're all doing here is focused around the community. It's focused around playing. I can't blame you. You want to play. I absolutely you want to play. And I'm sure it's a really, everyone wants to keep playing. And it would be really fun to bring people from the community out. But when you just having some hot dogs and some pop at your game, like, is not being community based. Just putting a company's name on your chest or on your kit is not being community based. You have to do something for that community.
Yeah, and again, if I look at like Flint City, like every year they have the Wreaths Across America, where they do a military appreciation night. The players wear military jerseys, these camouflage jerseys, and then they auction them off at the end of the night. And that money, 100% of it goes to Wreaths Across America, where they put wreaths on graves of the fallen heroes, right? During the holidays. It's a great organization. That is the definition of community. Right. Mm-hmm. They also do like a children's hospital one too, where they're donating $10,000 to $15,000 to $16,000 a year into these environments, right? And so and they are so. I mean, they'll go to the farmers market in Flint and they'll spend time there on Saturdays and meet people and stuff like that, and because they are the definition of community. Whatever community they're in, they ingrain themselves into it. And so I'm not saying that teams aren't doing that. I am not saying that the likes of teams in the Midwest Premier League aren't out and about and doing that. I'm not going to say that. We were just at the North American Soccer Expo, and I saw Detroit Metro, who's in the UPSL. I saw Oakland County FC. They had a booth. Okay. Why? They want to introduce themselves to people. The whole reason they have a booth is to show people who they are, what they do, what they're all about. That would be, on some level, the definition of a community-based team. I get it. I just think that we got to stop calling ourselves that. I think we just got to start calling ourselves soccer teams. The MLS is Major League Soccer team. They are a team, a professional team that plays in the MLS. And they're in Columbus, they're in Minnesota, Minneapolis, they're in Chicago, they're in New York, they're in LA. Okay, these are all communities that they're a part of, but they are not a community-based team. Now, Minneapolis or Minnesota Aurora, which is one of the best USLW teams in the country, they've been to national championships, they've been to semifinals, they've had a really good run since they found it, but they are 3,000 or 4,000 members. They're all owned by like the fan base. Okay. And so the fans themselves own the team. Now, that in itself might make you a community-based team. I don't know. But again, I think for every team that says they're a community-based team, which is a lot, I think only one or two might actually be a community-based team. And that's why I think we need to change that language. We need to just, turn it and say, hey, we're a soccer team. We're a soccer team that wants to be involved in our community. I think that's how that has to go. Because again, the soccer is the driving factor. You're going to sit here and tell me all day long that the ownership group of whatever team USA is going, all right, guys, all right, practice. We're gonna have this game on Tuesday. Oh, by the way, don't forget we have to go to this canned food drive in like 1 hour and skip practice. I don't think that that's the thing. I again, now in the NFL, a PR team, in the MLS, a PR team, along with everybody else, is managing that. And they're like, by the way, on Tuesday of next week and the following Tuesday, we're going to be at the soup kitchen as an organization doing our thing. And then players themselves have their own individual foundations, which they hire people to manage for them, and they go and show up when they're told to be showing up, okay? So, again, I don't think that the average community-based team in this country is doing that. I think they're really well-organized and structured organizations have a slew of interns and people that manage that for a lot of these teams, and then players show up when they're supposed to show up. Okay? But the average soccer team who plays in the Midwest Premier League, the UPSL, who happen to call themselves community-based teams, are not, in fact, involved in their community at all and are just there to play soccer. And we just need to say that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to be fair, if I'm a small business and someone walks in and says, hi, I'm with XYZ team here in the area. We're looking for a sponsor. We're a community-based team. What is it? Okay, what does that mean? Oh, we're going to come in and we're going to bring up, no, I want to play soccer and we need your help. Okay, well, what are you guys offering me? Well, we got jerseys. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. And you can come and you can bring people. Oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm not interested. I'm interested. But to say I'm a community-based team, what does that even mean? Are you saying that every player in your community is from your community? No, because you wouldn't be successful. Right? All these teams are like, oh my God, we're going to have everybody from Grand Rapids is on our roster. Only Grand Rapids people. Well, that sounds great, but if you don't want to win, the best players might not be from Grand Rapids. They might be from Lansing. They might be from Ann Arbor. They might be from Metro Detroit. I don't know, but I mean, like, you're really limiting yourself if you hold that true. I mean, Union FC Macomb, which is based here in Macomb County, they have nobody outside of Michigan, or people who do not have Michigan roots, will not be on our team. Now, you could argue that might be limiting, but there's a lot of really good players in Michigan, so you're not limiting yourself at all when you say that. Mm-hmm. But to say that we're only going to take players from the city of Troy, well, I mean, current city Troy players, or they grew up in Troy? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And do you think the community cares? I don't think if you ask the community, they probably don't care. They don't probably care. And so my message to teams out there is, if you want to start your own team, you don't have to call it a community-based team. We get it. We understand it. You want to play soccer. You want to play soccer. You want to play soccer. And it doesn't matter what league. It doesn't matter. Okay? The community does not need you to know that you want to be a community-based team. You want to play soccer, and you want the community involved. Nothing wrong with that.
All right.
But we need to stop calling ourselves community-based teams, because I think it is just it's like a ruse. It's like, no, we're here to play soccer, guys. For 2 months a year, we're playing soccer. No. For 2 months a year, you're playing soccer. Okay? And for 2 months a year, you need people to come to your games. Okay? And chances are that the people who come to those games are only people who actually want to be there because, again, the environment. You don't have the finances to pull off the environment that other teams can do, right? I mean, let's be honest. Financially, to bring in bounce houses and to bring in all these, it costs money. Mm-hmm. And these teams don't have it.
Yeah.
They don't have it. And so let's just get away from the whole community-based thing. Let's just say we're here to play soccer. We're going to be a soccer team. And guess what? If we grow and meet certain things, we can absolutely focus on giving back to the community in which we are currently playing our soccer games in. I'll give a perfect example. USL League 2, Oakland County FC came about here, I want to say it was 6, 7, or 8, maybe it was 10 years ago. But they started off at Stony Creek High School in Rochester. They moved to then Clawson and played at Clawson High School. And now they're in Royal Oak. And they've been in Royal Oak now for 3 years. Great, they have great ownership. We had great conversations this past week with them. But how is their community? They've moved 3 times in 10 years. So their biggest challenge is making sure that one, they can stay in their current environment, which I'd imagine they've got a home now in Royal Oak. Royal Oak and Clawson, not too far from each other. They're about a couple miles. But to go from Rochester Hills to Royal Oak, it's like a 25-minute drive.
Mm-hmm.
That's a significant drive. And so when you say you're a community-based team, that could be kind of rough, especially if you're in the early stages of your growth. I mean, they were moving. I think they moved to Clawson like 2 years into their history. So you went from, again, Rochester to Clawson. That's, again, 20-minute drive. I mean, no matter how you put it, it's a terrible drive, especially in traffic on a Friday night. Oh my God, So I just get away from community-based teams. You're a soccer team. You're a soccer organization. Your goal is to play soccer. And if you do right, and if you engage with the community, you'll absolutely get more people. But don't call yourself a community-based organization. Again, it doesn't. I just feel like that's just like. I feel like you're lying to people. It's like I feel like you're not being honest about what you're trying to do. I mean, I just don't like the phrase community-based teams. And if you think I'm off my rocker, by all means, tell me in the comments. Let me know. I mean, how many teams focus on the community as part of their process when they only have 2 months to put together a team that can compete for whatever they're competing for? I find it to be disingenuous, and I find it to be just, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. It's, like I said, you got to do something for the community if you're going to say you're for the community. Like that's really all it comes down to in my mind. You can't just simply say that you're a community-based team because, again, what does that mean? And when you're in an environment, especially when you're in these metro communities, you talk about Chicago, New York, any of these other places, when you're competing with the 7 other teams that are in your area, what does it mean to be community-based? What exactly are you doing to separate yourself from the rest of the teams in that community? I don't know. That's the question. So it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to be about it. And clearly we know there's a big difference when it comes to those two. So I think, but all that to be said, not trying to tear down anyone specific. We know that there's a lot of good teams in the UPSL and in the USL too that are very organized, that do make a concerted effort in the community. But for every one really good one, there's probably a few that aren't quite pulling their weight in that regard. And I think, like I said, that's where it really starts when we talk about the growing of the game of soccer in the United States. You can't just have teams that are just playing. They have to be able to engage the people in those communities, because that's where it starts. It starts with just going out and seeing a game or listening to a game or watching a game or just being in that environment. Like, that's where childhood memories are made. That's where kids want to start playing the game of soccer. I mean, we had Kids Can Conquer night in West Michigan last night, and it's for kids who have physical ailments and health concerns, and they're fighting, whether it be cancer or, paraplegic that we had in the booth last year. I mean, just these wild things that really give you perspective on what life is and just how spoiled we are in a lot of ways. And the kid we had yesterday, he had some sort of dietary disease where, like, there's a list of certain things that he can't eat, that if he does, his throat will swell up. And I can't remember the name of the disease for the life of me. It's a long one. But this kid was a big time soccer player, and he was talking to me about being a wing back and playing and wanting to go to the next level and everything. And I think he said he played for the Jaguars or something, but he was he told stories about how when he was young, it was Messi was the guy that he first watched. His dad watches the games, and so he was just kind of like sitting next to him watching the games, and that's where it all starts. So if you're gonna engage the community, you have to give the community something grab onto. You have to give the community something to carry with them in order to grow what it is that you want to grow. Grow your team, grow your club, grow your side. You have to make it, when I say community focused, they have to be one of your main focuses, not just someone who's on the back burner, like, hey, give me the money we need. Okay, let's move on. Let's just go play. Like, that model will never work.
No, it won't. And I want to make sure I premise this, and as we recap what we just talked about here today, is that I feel as a steward of this game. We've talked about this before about calling ourselves stewards of the game, because that's what we are. We are highlighting this game, the game that I love and I've been a part of since the day I was, I think, 5 years old. It's 38 years of my life have been dedicated to this game in some way, shape, or form. I've hours and countless hours. 3,000 broadcasts over the last 4 years. I can tell you that I love this game very much, and that's not me beating around the bush. That is 100% the case. I have dedicated my entire life basically to this game. And so when I say these things, it's not coming from a place of like not knowing. Yeah, it's not. And yeah, there might be a lot of teams out there that are solely focused on growing their community. I get it. And that's fantastic. If we talk about sustainability and about these teams lasting, and if we talk about promotion and relegation in this country, something that's a huge hot topic that we've talked about quite a bit on our platform, sustainability is a real thing. And if you've watched the Wrexham, anything to do with Wrexham on FX, Ryan Reynolds and I'll blank on the other guy's name, Rob. But both of those characters will tell you in the show that if they don't get promoted, they're screwed because they don't have enough money. Like, they even say it on the show, like, if we don't get money, we don't win to get this promotion, we are not going to make any money. We will be losing. I don't know what's going to happen. So they're betting everything on having success. At this level, at the amateur level, whether you win or lose, to be fair, is irrelevant. If you are looking for sustainability, you have to have enough money coming in. You can't lose money. You can't lose money. Right. And so what do you do? And so when you say you're a community-based organization, I want you to make sure that if you're going to say that or make that statement as a team, that you are in fact doing that. Yeah. Otherwise, it's disingenuous and it's wrong. Because again, I think you're there to play soccer. That's why you're there. And you want to use community-based in order to get people in the seats. You want to use community-based in order to drive sponsorship. You want to use community-based to create sustainability. And while being involved in the community will absolutely help you be sustainable, I think what you have to focus on first is organizing a well-structured, well-oiled foundation for your team with good financial responsibility, and then inserting the community aspect into that as you're growing. And so if you do it right, it'll grow the way it's supposed to. But if you do it the wrong way, people they'll fish that out of you, and they'll realize what you're trying to do, and you won't have what you want, and that's the biggest thing. So, but hey, episode number 132 is in the books, and so we want to thank you for stopping by here today and being a part of this once again. Tomorrow's Friday, and on the show, we're going to do some mailbag. We'll do some comments. We've had a bunch of comments coming in on TikTok here recently, so keep an eye out on all of our other social media. So keep an eye out for that. Tomorrow night, we'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern. We will have the North American Soccer Expo recap show live with me and Ryan Glinsky. We'll talk about that North American Soccer Expo. We have a bunch of interviews. Alexi Lawless, Jen Klein, Murray Finley, David Simeon. So many more. Luis Robles from the MLS. and so many more. I think we had like 10 or 11 interviews over the weekend. So a lot of those interviews will air tomorrow night, but you'll keep checking out our social media. We'll have them here throughout the rest of the day today in preparation for tomorrow's launch. But for Nathan Wangler, I'm Jonathan Turner. You've been watching Inside the Game here on the National Soccer Network. Don't forget to come back here tomorrow at the same time, same place, right here on Inside the Game. Boom.